Hey everyone, welcome to Bookends of Recovery, where recovery gets real and loved ones aren't left out. I'm Laura, and as you know, I have lived it. I have used, I have healed, and I have loved someone through it. So today we are going to talk about self care. I know it's a great topic, and that's why I love to talk about it. But this one, I'm going to talk about 5 self care practices that I've learned, some of them the hard way, that go beyond the surface and can save you from just wanting to chuck your cell phone across the room. So, the first one we're going to talk about is if anyone is like me and you spent a good chunk of your life, saying yes while in your brain you are going, why? Why did I just agree to do that when I really wanted to say no? So if you were a people pleaser or you are a people pleaser in recovery and healing, this one is for you. And it could be just agreeing to help someone at work. And meanwhile, you're like looking at your desk and you're like, look at all this crap I have on here. I do not have time for this. Or agreeing to volunteer at your kid's school, even though you just don't have the time or the energy. Remember when we talked about reserving your spoons? Or maybe it's getting pulled into an emotionally draining conversation after you've promised yourself you weren't going to do that anymore. Like, no more circular arguments, no more uh, vampire draining people. It's just, we're not going to do that anymore. And yet, it happened again. Because when we do that, you end up feeling annoyed with yourself or annoyed at the other person. And that's when resentments start building up. And you get frustrated. And that's not good for your recovery or your healing. It's not good for anybody. And so what you want to do, you can create a soft no list, and that can be a real game changer for you. And all it is, it's a very simple thing to do. You just list common requests that you tend to agree to out of guilt, because that's where it stems from, right? And then next to each thing that someone would normally ask of you is write a gentle way to say no. And that way, you're not scrambling in the moment. So I'll give you an example. I would love to support you, but I'm at capacity right now. Can we revisit this next week? So you're not being rude. You're not blowing them off. I know I always say no is a complete sentence, but that's hard for people, myself included. With certain people, I just can't say the word just no, because it's so, no is a complete sentence, but if you say that to somebody, they're just going to stare at you and be like, what the F? Like, how can you just say it like that? So you do have to have more of a longer explanation for some people. And I'm big about giving back to the recovery and healing community. So this was a big challenge for me to learn how to say no when someone needed me, especially in that space. And one time I was on vacation and someone had called and asked me to step in to take over for a group. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm already on vacation with my family. And because anytime, like, if someone needed me to step in to take over, like for a group or help mentor someone, I felt a sense of guilt for not being there when I was needed. So that guilt was already there. Now, when I was out of town and someone called, my first instinct was to tell my family I needed to do it. But then I stepped back and thought about it. Like, I'm already doing my group on my vacation, but why would I take time away from my family for this other group? And, this is supposed to be my time to rest and recharge. I needed to remember that I have to put myself at the top of my own self-care list. And so I said, look, I'd love to help, but I can't. I'm on vacation, I'm with my family. I can help another time, but this week, no, I can't. And so they found someone else, and the world moved on as planned. And that was it. I realized after I had done that, that was my issue. I had taken on the responsibility of the person who had called. It wasn't so much that I thought I was like a superhero and I had to do all these things. It was that I took on their emotions, like their responsibilities, the what ifs, like, oh my gosh, what if they call and they don't get anybody else? What's going to happen to the group? Who's going to lead it? What happens if, the group doesn't get held or whatever? I did a whole scenario as if it was my group. And I realized that's not my responsibility. It's that group leader who needed a sub, not me. And I realized I did that with everything. I did it with the projects at work. What if that person that's asking me to do something for them, if they don't find somebody to do it, then what's going to happen? So now I have to do it, but it's not my responsibility. And that was the moment I realized the world moves on after I say no. So for me, that was my aha moment. Okay, so something else that you can do is make a 10-minute reset basket. So this is, you want to do this because obviously your brain needs something quick and easy. And it also deserves an easy win. And we already know about your recovery and healing go bag. That's what this is, just on a tinier scale. So think of it as a mini first aid kit for your nervous system. So you're going to fill a small basket or a tote or a drawer with a sensory or emotional regulation tools, things like a grounding stone, calming scents, noise-canceling headphones, mini snacks, even if you want water, although I'm big about having your water with you all the time, or a scribbled quote that just feels like that emotional hug. And then make sure it's available to you when you're on edge, but you don't have the time or that energy for a full-blown self-care ritual. And so if you've listened to my podcast before, I'm all about those go bags. I think that was one of the biggest tools I used, when I was healing from betrayal trauma. Because I had one for my house, one for my car, one specifically for recovery, one for healing. I mean, I used them all the time. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Now that it's been so long since I started my journey with emotional sobriety and I've healed from betrayal trauma, I don't need all those go bags. But I still have a drawer in my safe space and in my office that has my favorite lotion. Well, my favorite lotion's on my desk, but in my safe space, it's in my drawer. I have a healthy snack in there, and I also have a CBT deck that I read. And my daily reader is also on my desk. So if I have those moments of anxiety, I have something to look toward. So, and if you've been through CBT, I highly recommend getting those cards. I got them off of Amazon. Great, great tools to have. Anyway, that's my digress. And you guys know, I always think it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I just think it's always great to be prepared. Okay, so the next thing that you can try is to schedule an hour of airplane mode time. So this was forced on me yesterday, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But what it is, you're just going to take a break from the world pretending it's urgent. I'm telling you. The reality is that if there's an emergency in the next hour, someone will call you. The rest can wait. I mean, it's exactly like it sounds like it is, right? Just take 1 hour where your phone is off. Notifications are silenced, and just let your brain breathe. No scrolling, no, doom and gloom, no dopamine hits, just quiet. And if you can do this before bed or first thing in the morning, and then watch how your baseline just calms and improves over time, you're going to be really impressed. And I confess, I am a work in progress when it comes to this. I do great in the mornings because everything is quiet already, unless, like right now, my dog is snoring next to me. But it's definitely harder for me at night to shake off the day. I have to use rain sounds, otherwise I'm thinking about what's happened during my day, or like the last episode of NYC Next Gen, the latest Housewives. So if you struggle with this, I could totally relate. But yesterday I came home from getting my hair flavored, which is a nice way of saying uncovering the grays, and I had no internet and no cable, so I wasn't able to watch my Housewives. What the heck? And anyway, so I was like, oh, I'll just text my neighbor, and she was like, oh yeah, they said it's not going to be on for like another 3 hours. So I said, okay, fine. So I took the dogs and we went out and sat in the backyard. It was a gorgeous day. Sun was shining, no humidity, which is unusual. And I sat in the backyard and read for like an hour. I just lost track of time. Dogs were happy, I was happy, and it was just the perfect reset. So, highly recommend it. The next thing you can try is write a letter to a future you, because sometimes your own words are the safest ones. No one's going to read it. It doesn't need to be a novella or a Shakespearean piece. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be encouraging. That's why you'll hear me call you guys superstars, because I feel like it's empowering to hear these words. It's encouraging. And when you say that to yourself, those are those affirmations that you need to hear. They're surprisingly powerful. Just write a short letter or even a voice memo to the version of you who's about to face something challenging, and reassure them. Remind them of what they've survived. Remind them of who they are, that they're tough, they're strong, they're worthy, they're lovable, all the things. And it's especially helpful in those moments When you're facing something that you feel like, oh my gosh, I just can't. Especially when you're going through betrayal trauma or trying to break a reactive pattern, your future self needs to be met with compassion more than criticism. So if you're someone who has a tendency to um, fall into that negative self talk, this is a great exercise for you. I do it. You guys already know I have my affirmation purple cards, but uh, I've done multiple versions of writing letters to myself. I've written to my past self, current self, future self. It's a very cathartic exercise. I highly recommend trying it. I mean, even if you don't like it, at least try it, give it a go, see what it feels like. And if you're not into writing it, just try the voice memo. It's pretty cool. You can also just create a low energy day ritual. Not every day has to be a day for growth. Some are just for being good to yourself, and being kind and gentle to yourself. And this one is probably my favorite one because it reminds me of the spoon theory, right? We just talked about the energy. Um, we all have those days where brushing our teeth feels like running a marathon in emotional fog. Instead of pushing through or feeling like a failure, what if you just honored those days with a soft and simple ritual? So, like, today I have a migraine. Okay, I know. I try not to talk about my migraines too much on here because you guys are probably like, okay, we get it. We know you get migraines. But for me, that means, okay, I'm not going to work today. And I'm going to do my podcast because that makes me happy, even if I sound terrible. But, and I also wear my comfy clothes. But maybe for you, your soft, simple ritual would be, wearing your comfy clothes, switching to audiobooks instead of social media, listening to your favorite podcast. Mine is Watch What Crappens. If you're a reality TV person, I highly recommend them. Hello, Ben and Ronnie. Drinking tea from your favorite mug, or doing just one thing and calling it enough. And if you're not familiar with the spoon theory, please look it up. I have it on my podcast. It's a very, very good theory. You're not falling behind. Just remember that. You're healing at a speed of safety. I'm going to say that again. You're not falling behind. You're healing at the speed of safety. And if you're in recovery, that applies to you as well. We have a tendency to look around and see other people, and from the outside, it may look like they are doing the best recovery in all the land. You don't know what's going on inside their brain. Be kind to yourself. One of my kids has a very stressful job. So they decided a few years ago, actually, it's a long time ago because now they're older, but that Sunday would be their day of true rest. They decided that it would be no phone, no email, no social media, and no news. That was just something that they decided, that's what they wanted to do to just decompress for their own mental health because their job was just, it's a lot. And so they decided that it would be just reading and playing, like their board games and video games. And then they got married, and they continued their tradition. And then when they moved away, they brought us into it, like we would do D&D over like video chat and stuff like that, Skype or whatever. And then they have a child, and it still continues. And I love that for them. And whenever I go visit them, it continues, and it's such a calm and peaceful day full of fun. And that is just built into their week. Like, that's just their thing, and now, of course, their child is older, and so they go and do adventures, like out, you know, they'll go hiking, or they'll go, do whatever, and it's just such a good day. Anyway, I just want to encourage you to continue to practice self-care, even on the days where you're just like, if you reach that plateau, because a lot of us do in recovery and in healing, where you almost feel like you feel nothing. And I really think that that's our brain just going, I need a break. Like, I cannot process right now. I just need to rest. And on those days, you still need to practice self-care. And that's where I think the low energy day needs to kick in. You still need to be kind to yourself. Self-care isn't always spa days and smoothies and, sometimes it's sitting with yourself in silence. Sometimes it's just not answering a text. Other times it's surviving the day without betraying your needs. Whatever it looks like for you, make it yours. And then make that sustainable. So if this resonated with you, I would love to know. Drop me a note or a message, a simple, you don't have to make it a big message, just saying thanks for that podcast or whatever. You're also invited to join me over at my new Reddit community. It's r/bookends of recovery. So whether you're healing from addiction or betrayal trauma, or you're loving someone through it, you'll find tools and support over there. Brand new, so I hope you'll join me over there. And of course, you can always find me at my website, bookensofrecovery.com, and over in Facebook at Bookends of Addiction Recovery over there. So I am sending all of you the most positive vibes possible, because you deserve them, my superstars. Thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate all of you.